Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue our journey with Nicole and Azan. Let's get to the show. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor, and let's see if anything of interest comes out of my face.
Yeah. If I didn't meet Nicole, I would still have a job. I would still have a job because I lost the job because she wanted me to talk to her like many times, like all the time.
I don't restrict him from getting any jobs, but it's like hard that if we can't talk most of the day, I work, I can't text at work, and then he has to work and maybe he can't text me, and then it keeps like that every day.
So this is something that a lot of long-distance relationships will run into. And I am working on a deep dive on long-distance relationships. A lot of you have asked me to do an episode on it. It might have actually already aired by the time this episode comes out as you're watching it. There is research that demonstrates that couples in a long-distance relationship, the communication frequency is a factor in how the quality of the relationship is perceived and also the longevity of the relationship. And so they're talking about the perils of that. She works during the day. She can't text during while she's working. They're in different time zones, Morocco, and I think she's in Florida. And for him, he says he lost his job because she wanted him to communicate with her a lot. I wonder what exactly that means. Was he fired because he was texting with her or FaceTiming with her, or did he quit because he wanted to be more available to her? It's unknown, but it is a major factor in a lot of long-distance relationships. If you watching are in a long-distance relationship or have been, you might have run into this because sometimes people have different gauges as to how much they want to communicate during the day or at all. For some people, they can be totally in love and only want to talk or hang out on FaceTime or even see each other very infrequently. I've worked with couples, long-distance relationships, where they might communicate intimately maybe once or twice a week, maybe a little bit of texting here and there, but not a lot. And then you have other people who they want to text all the time, every day, all throughout the day. Neither person is right or wrong. It's just a preference. And sometimes it's related to attachment style. Preoccupied people will want to communicate more. Avoidant people will not care that much or might even prefer not to communicate that much. But even among secure people, there's just a different gauge as to how often one would communicate. And it's interesting because how do you walk through your day having not seen your spouse, your partner, maybe for several weeks? How do you walk through your day with the feeling that you're in love and that you're connected to someone without having seen them physically? It's an interesting thing that long-distance relationships, that's what they have to create. They have to create that sense of closeness without physically being close. Now, of course, you can be physically close, live with someone for 10 years, and feel very distant. So it's not like being physically close means that you're going to be feeling as if you're close. But it does facilitate that. It would stand to reason that we evolved to feel proximity as a safety, proximity as a sign of warmth and intimacy, as a sign of relationship security. Makes sense, right? We didn't have texting on the African savanna 200,000 years ago. We saw our family members. We saw our tribe. And so for people in long-distance relationships, they're almost kind of going against evolution in that way, because, or how do we hack our brains to make us feel like we're close even though we are not physically close, even though we're halfway across the world? Of course, texting, FaceTime, these kinds of things. And so I feel bad for him that he lost his job. I wonder why he lost his job. Before I forget, subscribe below. That would be cool. Give us a thumbs up if you like the video, and hit the bell if you're interested in getting notifications of new episodes. We put out episodes sometimes multiple times a day, and so for some of you, maybe you don't want to miss that. Also, comment below. What's your experience like in long-distance relationships, and what do you think of Nicole and Azan? All right, let's get back to the show.
I don't know what to do in this moment, so because I don't have a job, so I just called Nicole and told her about my situation. The first time she sent like $800, and the next time Nicole, she sent me like 300, and other one she sent me like 500.
In America, it's normal sometimes for the girl to like pay.
I don't feel good, you know. I feel like that's not how it should be.
There's a lot to unpack here. Of course, there's nothing wrong with a woman giving her fiancé, who is a man, money for support. And for men, boys, we're taught in various cultures that that is emasculating, as they put it, which of course is just a social construction and a silly notion that we should shed. People should have the flexibility to live the lives that they want to have, and if these two, they want to have that where she helps him out with some money, then what is the big effing deal? So that's one thing to unpack. The other thing here is, I'm guessing that people, when they're watching the show, are thinking is, oh, is he scamming her? Because that's always the question that is put forth by, or not always, but it's often a question that's put forth, I think, by the internet as people are watching the show, which is he scamming her for a visa? Is he just trying to get out of Morocco? Is he just trying to get to the United States? Is he just thinking about earning more money in the United States or having a better life in the United States or whatever? Honestly, I have no idea what it's like to live in Morocco. Maybe it's much better to live in Morocco than it is in the United States. So, who knows? But that's always a question that comes up, and this points in that direction, right? That he is taking money from her. Did he actually lose his job, or did he just quit his job so that he could get money from her and he wouldn't have to work? He doesn't seem like that sort of person, but who knows? So a lot of questions, but really, no data to back up any kind of hypothesis. Also, before I forget, these videos should not be a replacement for therapy, and so if you need therapy, you need to find a therapist. You deserve to have that, and not use some random Yahoo on YouTube, such as this guy, as a replacement for therapy. Also, if you didn't know, I've been making a podcast for 12 years, and I have over 1,000 episodes of the podcast on various issues, such as related to the things that I'm talking about today. So if you aren't aware of it, you can actually subscribe on your phone to the podcast on a podcast app and get access to all those episodes. And if you're a patron, then you get access to all the episodes. Arguably, our best episodes are only available for patrons. Let's get back to the show.
I don't mind paying for things, like going out or like getting food for us. And I know you worry a lot, and I think worrying so much about all this stuff is like puts a little stress on our relationship.
Would you get mad if he got a job?
I wouldn't get mad if he got a job.
But she wanted me to find a job, like I can't talk to her.
Yeah, so he can talk to me.
Interesting. So we seem to be seeing somewhat of a pattern of him essentially giving in to her. Maybe this is what the mom has and the dad, I think, have been talking about of Nicole's. They've been saying that she is like a bulldozer, and she just bulldozes. When she wants something, she will not give up until she wants it, until she gets it. And so maybe for the two of them, while they were negotiating how to communicate in a long-distance relationship, she essentially, without being explicit, was saying, unless you can find a job where you can text me or FaceTime me throughout the day, then either you quit your job or this relationship is ending. And I don't know that, of course, but it seems to have that vibe to it for him. Now, maybe for him, he's just like, well, if she's going to send me money and eventually I'm going to go to the United States, I'm not working on a career in Morocco, so yeah, I'll just be unemployed for the last number of months I live in Morocco because I'm going to the United States anyway. So maybe he's just like, well, what's the big deal? But it is interesting, and I think that we might be seeing some kind of a dynamic there. To what degree is it, though? Is it a minor issue where they both have the flexibility to change their mind? He could get a job if he wanted to, or if one came along. Or is it a very high degree where he really feels like he's a controlled person, where she is coercing him into a lifestyle that he doesn't want to, and he has to do a certain thing that she wants because she's dominant and she is punishing if he steps out of line. I don't know. It's hard to tell from what we're seeing.
شوفي Nicole, c'est délicieux.
And try, it's very delicious.
I see its teeth.
Yeah, I know there is brain and there is teeth.
I'm not that hungry.
No. This is the first time you're telling me that you're not hungry. That's fine. You know, I know that it's hard for her to taste it. She even like almost threw up when she tried to eat tomato. She was like scared. She can't even try to. Just try it. You see?
So I will say that there are a lot of judgmental people that will judge someone like Nicole because of what she's doing right here, that she's a very picky eater or that she doesn't eat vegetables, these sorts of things. As I've been saying throughout this series with this couple, Nicole, as everyone else, has the right to not only have the body that they want to have and eat what they want to eat and exercise if they want to exercise, and no one else can judge that person for that. There are some rare exceptions, but in general, that's true. And our society is extremely sizist and extremely judgmental and dehumanizing to people for the way that they look. And another marginalization that we impose on individuals is people who are finicky eaters, people who are picky about what they eat. And we tend to have this range where we think, well, you're a good person if you're open to eating these things, particularly in cultural pockets, right? There are various different reasons why someone could be a picky eater. On one end, you just have people who just have a preference. Sometimes the way it feels in your mouth, if you're out there and you're a picky eater, or you've ever been humiliated as someone's trying to make you eat something and they're making fun of you, just try it, or trying to, being real pushy. It's not as if you just sort of intellectually will say, I just don't eat that sort of thing. It's usually like it's a physical reaction. You put something in your mouth, our bodies are designed to spit things out and even vomit if we have something in our mouth that at least our body believes is poison or bad for us. It's very tempting to look at someone like Nicole and say, well, she's just being a baby. Well, it's quite possible that her body actually, because she's not used to it, it's actually very, very difficult for her to eat this. And some people are very picky for their whole lives, and there's nothing wrong with that. People should be allowed to be picky, particularly as adults, right? Now, when you have a picky child, and I've worked with families in family therapy around this, that can be very difficult. And there's a lot of different things we can look into. There's all sorts of eating disorders, all sorts of feeding disorders, all sorts of compulsive, obsessive, anxiety disorders that can be related to eating. So I'm not going to say it's a simple answer. But there are some people who we look at and we would say, well, you're being picky for reasons that are changeable. So to back up, there are people who have picky eating preferences, and that's just how they are. And clinically speaking, we just say, well, it's just a preference. Some people like to wear, shirts with buttons on it, and some people don't. We don't have to pathologize that. Some people like to eat particular kinds of foods, and some people don't. What's the big deal? And everyone's allowed to make their own choices about what they eat. So, but there are some people who are very picky about what they're eating or have almost phobias about particular kinds of textures or foods. And with treatment, they can actually change that preference, or they can get rid of their phobia. So for Nicole, she doesn't like. They're serving her a sheep's head. The aunt cooked a sheep's head, cut it in half, and flopped it in front of her, and they're trying to get her to eat, I think, a cheek or something with skin on it, and there's brains in there. I think a lot of people that would make them skittish. I personally would really dig into that. As a Japanese American, I grew up with a lot of foods that my friends and neighbors thought were disgusting, and I really took a lot of pride in my ability to just love anything. And so I'll eat just about anything. Anyway, the point is that for some people, they might go through traumas early in life that will traumatize them and then they develop phobias. So let me talk about a different situation besides food. Someone is young, and they don't. With dogs, they like dogs, but they're not really sure about dogs, and they're starting to get to know dogs, but they're not really. And then all of a sudden, one dog just bites them and attacks them, and they're traumatized by that. Well, we could imagine that person for the rest of their lives always being a little bit afraid of dogs. Some people are terrified of dogs for this reason. Or maybe they grew up in a community where all the dogs were feral and dangerous, and so dogs are very scary to them. So because of an experience, they have a visceral reaction to dogs, and sometimes they'll be quite convinced of it. It's like, no, dogs are dangerous, when you're trying to convince them. My dog is not dangerous. No, dogs are, you don't understand, dogs are dangerous. So sometimes the trauma will inform their cognitions and their belief system about the world, which can be distorted. So let's take another situation. You're 5 years old, and someone flops down some kind of food in front of you, or you're 3 years old, and you start getting fed food, or you're told to eat this food, and something goes wrong. Either you're humiliated, or it was gross to you, and someone makes you eat it. Aunts and uncles and parents and siblings are like, you're going to eat this. And you're just like, and they're all this trauma is associated with this food, the sensation, the way it smells, the way it looks. And then from then on, every time you see cottage cheese or something, you have that visceral reaction of terror. Or another situation is you're eating the food. And this actually happened to me. When I was young, I probably was, 5 or 6 years old. Maybe I was a little older, but anyway, I asked my sister to make me a mustard sandwich. For some reason, I just really wanted a mustard sandwich. I ate the mustard sandwich and then immediately had flu symptoms. I'll spare you the details, but I was probably getting sick. My flu symptoms were probably ramping up. I ate the mustard sandwich, and it just sort of coincided with the flu symptoms onset. And for years after that, I wouldn't eat mustard because I thought I was allergic. So that was that distorted cognition. I had no reason to believe I was allergic to mustard. It turns out I'm not allergic to mustard, and I love mustard. But I associated those things. I said, oh, mustard sandwich equals very bad flu symptoms, which are terrible. And so my body actually had a physical reaction whenever I saw mustard. It wasn't that bad. It was mostly the cognitive distortion belief system about mustard, but I was very picky about mustard. It was like the one thing I was picky about growing up. And so for some people, I don't know if Nicole is one of those people, but for some people, they'll have some kind of traumatic moment with food or a particular kind of food, and it's very difficult for them. That can be changed, but it has to be slow. You can't it's not typical that it will work if you just sort of force something on someone, because actually that just piles on the trauma. Right now for Nicole, whatever sort of issue she has around food and different kinds of food, I don't know if this is helping. It could help though too. It depends. It depends on how distressed she is in this moment. If she's an 8 out of 10, then that likely means she's being re-traumatized by this moment, and she'll be even less likely to venture outside of her narrow, food choices. But if her distress is lower than that, like a 4, then it's possible, and she sustains that, and she's like, oh, you know what? That wasn't so bad. I didn't have a spike in distress. I ate the food. I ventured out. I did something I never would have done before. Maybe I can try other kinds of things. Now, I'm not saying that she's supposed to do that. I'm just saying that that's an option available to people when they have that. I would really have to ask Nicole, what her goals were, what that was about. I would suspect that Nicole would say, well, if I could, I would like to be more open to more foods, because I understand that other foods are, supposed to be good for you, vegetables, this kind of thing. But they're disgusting to me. And so maybe we would talk, if she asked me to help her with that, we would talk about her belief system and her cognitions, and I would say, well, let's see if that's changeable. I'm not going to force you to do anything, but let's take baby steps and see if little things can happen. Let's find the least offensive vegetable that you could find, and in the least offensive way, in a way that you're in control of, maybe celery or something, and let's see if you can habituate to that vegetable, and then let's move Let's move our way down that road just a little bit by a little bit. Maybe you'll find at the end of that process that you like all vegetables and you just had this belief system or this traumatic history around vegetables or being forced to eat certain things that goes away, and then you love all vegetables. Or maybe you find that only some vegetables you're into while other vegetables you're not. So I don't know. I'm just rambling. There's a lot I could say about this. There's a lot of different things that are related to what I'm saying that could be related to what Nicole is going through, but I just thought I'd ramble for a little bit as I react to this TV show.
It's good, you see.
Tu es au Maroc. Il faut manger le plat de Maroc.
She said, whenever you're in Morocco, eat what Moroccans eat.
But I will say, again, just to reiterate, if I didn't say this clearly, is that we should not judge people for being picky eaters. It's very common for us to do. It's like, oh, she's so picky, she won't eat this. It implies that somehow it's this character flaw or some kind of decision that people make. It's usually not, particularly by the time you're 22 years old, it's usually not a choice that you're making. It's usually an actual visceral reaction to things that are outside of the norm of your eating. So we should calm down a little bit about that. Now, it's common for people to take insult and say, for you not to eat my food is insulting to me because I spent all this time on it and it hurts my feelings that you're not going to eat my food because my food's not good enough for you? And that's a normal sentiment as well, but it has to be considered with all the other things involved, particularly when it comes to someone from Florida who probably has had a very limited set of foods that are in her Floridian culture, and now she's being asked to eat goat brain, which I'm going to say even the adventurous Seattleites would have a problem with that. I'm trying to think, would I eat goat brain? Yes, I would. That didn't take me long. Absolutely. I mean, I don't know how good I would feel about it, but if I was in a situation like this, I'd be like, yeah, give me some of that stuff.
It's hard for you to be Moroccan just for 2 months.
It's not even about being Moroccan, I'm about to eat brain.
Just wait and stop
Okay,
talking.
hey.
It's time to eat, not to talk. That's it.
No.
She made this for you. You're crazy.
I don't want.
Stop. Did you eat it?
It's mushy.
You're crazy. My aunt, she's been like many hours to make that.
Yeah. Is there any other dish you could have made for the person from Florida?
She did this for her, but she was disappointed and mad because Nicole, she didn't eat it. She not respect my culture.
ما بغيت تاكلي أنا غنسد الكوزينة.
She said
Okay.
if you didn't eat this, she would close the kitchen. You'll be all night without food.
صافي.
I don't understand what's going on here. Azan's family is usually really nice, so I don't know. It's like they're trying to torture it. You saw her vomit it up, essentially. What are they trying to prove? Now, like I was saying, for a lot of people, it is this assumption that if you don't eat my food, you are being disrespectful. And also there's this assumption that if someone doesn't eat any, a sort of regular food of that culture, then you're just being picky, you're just being a complainer. But that's not always true. For some people, it's a visceral reaction. It is a difficult thing for their body to handle and shouldn't be taken lightly. And so I don't know. I don't like what's going on right now.
كنت كنتمنى يعجبها. قلت أنا غادي يعجبها ملي ما قبلته ما عندنا ما نديرو لها.
You lost your dinner tonight. The way she ate or what she ate, I feel like that will have a big problem because I'm not sure that she's gonna change just like that. But I know it's not easy. I want her to star, to star. The point is to star.
Okay, that's what you want, Azan. Is that what she wants? And if she wants that, is this how she wants to expand her food horizons? How about you work consensually with people instead of forcing things on people? All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Thanks for joining me out there. Please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.